Welcome to A Place for Film, the IU Cinema podcast. On this week's episode, we're reviewing Ebertfest. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. My name is Andy Hunsucker.
And I'm Jason Thompson.
And on this week's episode, we're going to review Ebertfest. This is Roger Ebert's film festival. Happens every year. Went there last year. And with us to talk about it this week is Craig Simpson, who also attended Ebertfest along with me.
Yeah, hi. Good to be back.
Yeah. So Craig is also the manuscripts archivist from the Lilly Library.
You got it.
Yes. Okay. Well, let's talk about Ebertfest. And Ebertfest was particularly significant this year. It's always a good festival to go to because they play film, it's films essentially handpicked by Roger Ebert to sort of say, these are the films that I think did not get enough attention this year. It used to be called the Overlooked Film Festival.
Right.
And I think that's officially the subtitle, though it doesn't appear on any marketing of it anymore.
Right. And Roger played fast and loose with the term overlooked. For example, one year he showed Singin' in the Rain under the justification that musicals were an overlooked genre.
Yes, the most famous musical of all time. Let's go ahead and throw that one in there.
Right, but that's okay. It's his festival.
Andy had not seen that for a very long time.
Yeah,
until
I saw
recently.
it like 2 years ago for the first time. So
The Andy Hunsucker Overlooked
exactly
movie.
We're working on it.
Yes. Yeah. Well, you know what? Edgar Wright did a thing at some theater, maybe it was the New Beverly, where it was like, here's 10 films that I haven't seen that I just want to see. And he threw some really well-known films on there. But you know what? Now
we all have
now
them.
He's seen all of those.
You're just more vocal about them.
What I've learned is that no matter how many movies you've seen, there's always someone out there who can make you feel like you've never seen any movies ever.
That's true.
So anyways, I'm not ashamed. I'm not ashamed. Well, let's talk about the atmosphere at the festival because that was, went last year and it's a very fun festival. It's a very sort of familial festival. Like, the people who are there as guests, like they're excited to be there. They're, very open and welcoming. This year it was sort of the same way. It was just a little different, Yeah. I think the biggest difference was Chaz Ebert herself. And I wasn't entirely certain that she would be there. But she said something on the first night that I think summed it up. She just said, during her opening remarks, she just said, "Thank you for giving me somewhere to be this week," which I think just brings it all home.
Yeah.
She lost her husband 2 weeks before this event. And sometimes you just need to be doing something.
Yeah.
You can't just sit at home and wallow forever.
Right.
And I don't every panel that we went to, it started out with, what are your memories of Roger? When did you first meet Roger? What was your first memory of Roger and all that stuff, which was really nice to hear from all the different people who were part of his life in one way or another, being able to say, how did I meet this guy?
Yeah, I was in the lobby, I think, the first or second night, and I was talking to Matt Zoller-Seitz, who's the film and TV critic for New York Magazine, and he said we were kind of talking a little bit, and he said, "Boy, it's strange without Roger here." And I said, "Yeah, but in a way, he's more pervasive than ever because everybody was talking about him constantly." And that article you had mentioned that he wrote a couple days before he passed away, he summed up his departure what he called a leave of presence. and I told Matt I'm only beginning to fully understand what he meant by that. I don't know if Roger knew he was going to pass away, but he seems to have meticulously planned out the aftermath.
I don't know if he knew for sure this was when he was going to go, but I feel like he was a pragmatic person and he was like, eventually I'm going to be gone.
Right.
So I should set up some things because, Chaz he was talking about future festivals, like what should we do at future festivals. He wrote a song at the festival.
Yes, we sang at the first night.
Yeah, there was a sing-along at this festival. I've been to 7 or 8 film festivals now, never been to one with a sing-along.
Sing-along and a dance, which we'll talk about a little later.
We'll get to that. That's a whole other story.
Yeah.
So he sort of set up a few things. He played this he almost set up like a memorial for himself.
In a way, he did, yeah. Even the films were thematic.
Yeah, very thematic. That's something else I would really want to talk about. There was definitely a pervasive idea of death in almost every single one of these films. Almost every single one of these films, one of the main characters dies in a very sort of specific way. So yeah, I mean, I gotta think he was feeling his own mortality. So on the first night before the first film, they played a clip from Chimes at Midnight, the Orson Welles film, which it was all about how, oh, haven't we had a great time? Haven't we had some times? And then we all sang this song that he rewrote the lyrics to a song called "Those Were the Days."
Those were the days, my friend.
Those were the days, my friend. And it was, the song was about, wasn't it great? There was a theater we used to go to where we'd laugh away the hours, and those were the days, my friend, and so on and so forth. But it really almost felt like a planned memorial, really. So not many people get to do that. And I got to think he was feeling his own mortality a bit, and being a pragmatic person just wanted to make sure some things were in place. But yeah. Well, let's talk about the films here. Let me see here. I saw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of the films. I didn't see all of them at the festival. One of them I watched in my hotel room because I was tired.
Got retweeted.
Yes. That's the other thing. Thanks to Ebertfest, we got like 20 new followers because they were just retweeting everything I said. I could do no wrong in the eyes of Ebertfest.
But now they're going to know that you saw Julia.
Yeah, whatevs. I watched Julia in a hotel room on a screen that big. I'm sorry. I was tired. I didn't want to sit in a theater seat all night. So the opening night film, let's just start there, was Days of Heaven, the Malick film, which we've had at the cinema before. I was very excited to see it again. I mean, I don't know what else you can say about it. It's just an exceptionally beautiful film. It almost feels like you're watching someone's dream. People are just walking in and out of paintings all the time. The most interesting thing for me about the film this time was hearing Haskell Wexler talk about it and talking about his role in the film, because there was he's credited as additional photography by. Now, to hear him tell it, he came in and saved the picture in some eras. Now he's saying, yeah, I'm kind of credited the right way because, he's talking about how he sort of co-opted the style that was already in place from the previous. What's the name of the accredited director of photography?
The credited, I'm probably going to butcher his name, but it's something like Nestor Almenendros or something.
Yeah, I
like
couldn't remember his name.
Right,
but he's the credited person. He started the film and then had to go. It was running long, so he had to go and do something else. So Wexler came in to finish off the film, and I think was it Matt who interviewed him after Matt Zeller Sites. He was talking about things that Wexler had said in the past, like Wexler sat in a movie theater with a stopwatch and figured out how much of the film he shot versus how much the other guy shot, and he said, I had more. But now he sort of was very gracious this night, and he had a lot of really good quotes. He's just a fascinating individual.
Yeah, he's 91 years old, and he walks like a gazelle, and just and the festival was dedicated to him. Roger, before he passed away, had dedicated it to Haskell Wexler.
Yeah.
So it was great to see him because he had won. Because Nestor, and I can't say his last name, he had won the Oscar for Days of Heaven, which I think was partly what rankled Wexler, although Wexler won a couple Oscars himself for Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf and Bound for Glory. So, and if you ever get a chance, watch on YouTube Haskell Wexler battling David Carradine about a year before Carradine passed away, because Carradine always took shots at him for Bound for Glory and said that he made it too pretty. And Wexler just tears into him. And Carradine fights back. It's really great. Yeah.
Wow. But yeah, Days of Heaven, if you haven't seen it, go see it. You got to see it. You got to see it. It's just exceptional. And Wexler even said that he saw the Criterion version on Blu-ray a couple nights before, and he said it looked amazing to his eyes. And if the director of photography says it looks amazing, I think it probably looks pretty amazing.
I'm pretty sure it's available on Netflix, but you probably should seek it elsewhere. I would think.
There's a really nice Criterion Blu-ray that I have. I haven't watched that Blu-ray yet because I saw it at the cinema. Now I've seen it again. So who knows how long it'll be before I watch it on Blu-ray.
Yeah. The connection with Ebert is that Roger was a longtime Malick supporter. And Days of Heaven got kind of mixed reviews when it originally came out, I think in 1978. And as it was incredibly fitting. Roger's last review, the last review he ever wrote was To the Wonder, which is the new Malick film.
Yeah, there was some consternation that the last review he had written would have been like The Host, the Stephanie Meyer film. And people were like, no. But it's very fitting that the last one he wrote was To the Wonder. There's also a short film. Let's talk about the 2 short films that played. There's one called I Remember, and there's one called To Music. I didn't really care for either of these that much. I Remember I liked a lot more than To Music, but I Remember is sort of like a young woman. It's sort of told in almost like you're at a distance from it. You're sort of learning what's happening as it's going along. A woman is kind of going through her daily life, but it keeps cutting away to like this sort of beach scene, and you sort of get the sense that she's recently lost someone important to her, and so she's kind of remembering him as she's going through her day. It was okay. It was the director Grace Wang. It was her first short film. For first short film, it's very good. The sound mix was poor.
Too much boom mic.
Yeah. And I don't know if it was just the way if they had the sound turned up. We were also sitting right up front with this sort of cludged together speaker arrangement, so it might have been blasting us especially hard. But the sound mix was sort of it was tough. But overall, I think I guess what I'll say is I've seen more engaging short films, but I've also seen less engaging short films. So that one was very good. I'm interested in seeing what she does next.
Yeah. Yeah, the nicest thing about it was actually what happened afterward, because there's a scene in this short film where the main character finds a note in an old shirt, and after the film, which was only like 10 minutes or so, I think, Chaz Ebert went up on stage and she said, that I saw that scene, and she said I opened my glass case and she pulled out a note from Roger.
Yeah.
So that was a nice moment. Yeah.
The other one was one called To Music, which I really particularly didn't like. This was, I guess it's a student film. They're still students, but they're sort of treating this as a professional production. I've definitely seen more engaging student work here at IU. And I guess I've seen less engaging student work as well. Basically, the way they explained it, the filmmakers explaining it after the film talked about how, student filmmakers. We were just in the south of France. I guess they have connections to go to Cannes.
At a via.
Yeah. We were in the south of France, and we just decided to make a movie. And it kind of shows, I got to say. It just kind of meandered. It didn't seem like it had much of a point. It was like trying to build an emotional climax, but I didn't know anything about any of these characters. So why does it matter to me if they're feeling emotions or what emotions they're feeling? None of that really seemed to make a lot of sense to me. So I would say big thumbs down to that one. That one it didn't seem to, it looked beautiful. They clearly know what they're doing with the camera, and they're in the south of France. Literally anything you point a camera at is going to look great. But it just didn't really seem to have a point.
I think the problem partly is you think, okay, this is at Ebertfest. It's at a major festival, so you kind of set your bar high.
Yeah.
And I think I might have liked it a little more than you. I thought it was okay. But we should also say, too, one of the co-stars of the movie was Paul Cox, who isn't all that well-known outside of Ebertfest, but he's very well-known in kind of Roger's inner circle and the inner circle of this filmmaker, because he had a film last year at Ebertfest, and one that we'll talk about here too. And he played a priest, which would be sort of like casting Werner Herzog as a NASCAR driver or something. It was and it was okay.
Yeah,
it was nice to look at.
Yeah,
but like you said, at Double Exposure there were movies there that were just as good, if not better.
See, now I want to see Werner Herzog as a NASCAR driver. Man, that needs to happen.
It'd be cool.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that Paul Cox movie. This is
Do we have to?
Yeah. This is the only other film that I really didn't care for at Ebertfest. This was a film, I don't remember the subtitle, but it was called Van Gogh.
Vincent, the Life and Death of Van Gogh or something.
It's an interesting concept, at least. So they took, and this is directed by Paul Cox, who I don't think I've seen any of his other films, but it's I guess it's sort of a documentary, but it's kind of dramatized. The idea is they have all these letters from Van Gogh to his brother Theo, and it's basically talking. It's just reading the letters, and you're seeing things happen in front of you. Sometimes the best parts of the film were when you were seeing the actual paintings or drawings that he was talking about in the letters. That was great. I thought that was amazing. Then, if he doesn't have anything particular to talk about, it's sort of like scenes of nature or, places. I mean, some of it was like places where Van Gogh actually was. So it's like, here's what this place looks like now that he was talking about 150 years ago or whatever. That was kind of interesting. But for me, I've seen Lust for Life, which is the dramatized version of essentially the exact same material, starring Kirk Douglas, and Kirk Douglas really is chewing that scenery up, and it's great. I loved Lust for Life. This suffers greatly in comparison to Lust for Life.
And I've never seen Lust for Life, so I didn't know the story kind of the way you did, beyond just sort of superficial knowledge. But I remember sitting there, I was sitting next to you, and John Hurt is narrating the letters. And there's nothing wrong with John Hurt per se, but I remember about 10 minutes in, I thought, oh my God, the whole movie is going to be like this. And there's 90 minutes to go. I may have groaned audibly. You can, I don't know. But I was just sitting there. And I remember, honestly, I almost nodded off a few times.
Yeah.
And after the film, I remember I staggered up the aisle and I saw other people sort of doing the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, and I've read some reviews from friends of mine who liked it quite a bit. In fact, my friend Stephen Boone, the wonderful film critic for Capital New York, was out in the lobby, and he said, "Oh, that was so touching." And sorry, Stephen, I lied to you. I don't want to ruin your enjoyment, but I was glad when the movie was over.
Yeah, I mean, I think the letters are great. They're amazing that we have access to that sort of thing, that we can sort of see the inner thoughts of someone who was so tortured during life. I just don't think it makes a compelling film. What I think would make it very compelling, we talked about this, make this like a one-man show where you literally have a guy on stage, not doing a dramatic thing, just maybe sitting on a stool, reading the letters of Van Gogh as you see the paintings on
Can it
screen.
be Sean Connery?
Sure, why not?
Well, as good as any. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would buy a ticket to that.
Yeah,
I think that
too.
would be interesting.
Or Steven Seagal.
Let's not get crazy. Let's try to keep it in the artistic realm.
That would be
here.
counterintuitive casting, actually. One other thing that I thought was just unintentionally hilarious. I'm sorry, Paul Cox, if you're listening, but it was he does this thing when you were talking about the dramatizations, where the camera is from Van Gogh's point of view, and at one point the camera does a zoom up to these windows, and I thought, and I leaned over to Andy and I said, "This is like the Evil Dead."
Yes,
the original.
It was exactly.
It
like
was
the Evil
exactly
Dead.
like that.
It was.
So
yeah. So I would say if you're looking for a Vincent Van Gogh film, go track down Lust for Life. That film is utterly amazing. It is essentially the exact same material as this, but you get Kirk Douglas, and that's always good in my opinion. And Kirk Douglas with dyed red hair.
Yeah, which is insane.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm just going chronologically, even though that's going to leave you with two at the end. Maybe
no,
we'll
that's okay.
mix up the last few at the end.
We probably should say that we both missed, unfortunately, In the Family, directed by Patrick Wang. And in hindsight, I wish I had skipped Vincent and seen In the Family. In the Family is a 3-hour a familial drama, which everybody I talked to at the festival, this was clearly the festival favorite, and I've promised myself I will catch up to it as soon as I get a chance.
I saw the director Patrick Wang at one of the panels, and I handed him my card very selfishly and said, I wrote John's contact information on the back of it because this is self-distributed, so he can do this sort of thing. I'm like, email this person, tell him you want to bring your movie here, and I'm going to be pounding the pavement for this guy because selfishly I want to see the movie. I skipped the movie. very dumbly. I think we both agree that we skipped it because it was the longest film and it was like a nice break period on it.
Yeah, and Vincent just wore me out, honestly.
Yeah. So let's talk about Julia. I guess I'm the only one who watched Julia.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
We both agreed we're gonna like not see Julia because it's tired. We've been a long day, and because we went to I went to all the panels as well. So I was starting my day at 9 a.m. and then by 4 o'clock is like I'm kind of ready to do something else.
Yeah, and the weather was terrible. It was raining constantly.
The weather was probably the worst weather I've experienced in probably a couple years. I mean, it was, and like the Thursday, it was literally pouring down rain all day long. I did not walk outside without being rained on until 10 o'clock at night when we left Bernie. It was almost midnight when we left Bernie. So that was rough. So go get some food, go back to the hotel room, relaxing. Sort of feel like, all right, I could sort of plan to see a movie now. I wonder what time it is. The movie started at 8:30. It was only 7:30, and I was like, how can I justify not going to the movie? And I was like, well, let me see what's on Netflix. It's not on Netflix. Okay, let me look at Amazon. Oh, it's on Amazon Instant Watch. Okay. So luckily the hotel Wi-Fi was able to handle the streaming, and I got to watch Julia. Not the ideal experience, and I didn't get to see Tilda Swinton talk about the film. But what I will say about Julia is it is sort of an epically brave performance. Tilda Swinton plays Julia, who is essentially one of the most loathsome people put on film, probably in the top 50 most loathsome people put on film. And she basically, like, there's like 10 different scenes that start with her saying to a guy, hey, what's up? And finishing with her waking up in the guy's bed the next day. It's like she has no standards of any kind. Just whoever will let her sleep in their bed, she will go do that. But she meets this woman who sort of has this plan to get her son back. And she says, my son has been kidnapped by his father. He doesn't want to be with his father. I'm going to kidnap my son back. And when I get my son back, then, my son will be very happy and we'll go live off in our life. And will you help me? And she sort of hems and haws and talks to some people and finally decides, yes, I will help this woman do this. But because she is the loathsome person that she is, she decides to double-cross the mother of her son, the mother of this child, and decides to kidnap him on her own. And then she manages to get the kid, and now she's going to blackmail the grandfather who's got lots of money on her own. She doesn't need the mother for this. So it then turns into she's sort of taking the lead on this and trying to hide her face from the kid. And then she also tells the kid, oh, it's like your mom's behind this whole thing. So, it's like I'm just helping her out. So, tell the police that it's your mom, not me, and on and on and on. Eventually, she sort of gets to the point where she's about to get the money, and then it goes in a whole other tailspin. It's almost like a television series where it's like you've got the first part where you're meeting the person, and then the epic event happens at the end of the first episode, and then there's the second episode. The epic event happens at the end of the second episode, and it just goes on, and it goes around and around and around. But at the end of this movie, I'm really rooting for this character. I want her to succeed. And because her motivations change drastically from the beginning of the film to the end of the film, it is a really excellent movie. And if you have Amazon Prime, I highly recommend you stream it as soon as possible. It is a very good movie. I don't regret not seeing it in the theater because I was very tired, and I don't know if I would have liked it as much if I'd had to, sort of get a seat and sit down and sort of wait for the movie to start and then wait for the blah, 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 and wait for the introductions to be done and all that. So I'm pleased. I'm happy enough with my choice of not seeing it at the theater.
Yeah.
But
it was a long film, right?
It was about 2.5 hours. But I think it's worth the running time because it keeps changing. It keeps switching. You keep thinking, all right, I know where this is going, and then it changes. The whole thing, everything changes. So, Julia, excellent film. Last one.
So the last one after that was the 9 o'clock Saturday night. It's a film called The Spectacular Now. Mm-hmm. This film, and I kind of deliberately avoided reading a whole lot about these movies. I didn't want to. They had a program with Rogers Reviews, which I read after I saw the films because I just kind of wanted to go in as cold as possible. And I knew one thing I knew about this was that it was a teen movie starring Shailene Woodley from The Descendants. She was gave that wonderful performance as the older daughter of George Clooney. And I was kind of surprised seeing her because I thought it's a couple years later she'll be older, but she looked almost exactly the same. So I'm not sure when if they shot it right around the same time. But she's actually not the main character. I forget the actor who played him, but the movie begins in a way that almost made me want to get up and leave because it was late. It's sort of the high school senior writing his college essay application. And it's all the first 5 minutes, it's all this ridiculous stuff with profanity laced that no real person would ever write in a million years. But then I realized the movie is kind of taking John Hughes teen film cliches and kind of subverting them or ignoring them because it kind of drops that after a while. Then it has the meet cute with the guy is kind of a popular kid in high school and she's sort of the she's an attractive girl, but nobody knows it kind of thing. And you think, okay, they're going to meet and he's going to use her to help him with his geometry homework. But then it kind of drops that. And then he decides that he kind of likes her and he takes her to the prom and you think, oh, his ex-girlfriend's going to be real mean to her and cruel. But the ex-girlfriend's a nice person. And so it keeps kind of peeling away all these cliches. And what actually the movie ends up being is kind of a parable about alcoholism, which is interesting because Roger was very upfront, particularly the last few years of his life, in saying that he was an alcoholic and earlier in his life and became, of course, a recovering alcoholic decades later. So I think films like that and Oslo, even though it's about drug addiction, it's still addiction. I think Tilda Swinton's character in Julia is an alcoholic. So that kind of theme really clearly resonated with him. And this movie was based on a novel, which I haven't read, but it was a very good, very, very sweet film. I really enjoyed it. And it was kind of after all sort of the just kind of the darkness earlier in the week, not just with some of the films themselves, but the Boston Marathon craziness that was going on all week and the weather and Roger's death kind of lingering over everything. It kind of ended on a nice, hopeful note, I thought.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and the one that really struck me was the two that really struck me, and especially Ballad of Narayama, because right before the film, Chaz said, Roger wanted this one thrown in at the last minute. Oslo and Ballad of Narayama are both about, like, am I useful here? Am I just taking up resources that other people could be using? You know, that was a major theme of both of those films. And that's what really struck me. You know, he must have been thinking about that. He's like, how long can I go on? How long can I be Roger Ebert, you know? He had resigned his job. He's sort of like moving on to a new thing where he doesn't have to be sort of the main guy all the time. He sort of built sort of a network of film critics to kind of do a lot of stuff for him. So those two in particular were sort of made me think about the theme. Van Gogh as well. It's like I'm doing all this stuff. I'm painting all these pictures. Does anyone care? Does anyone appreciate what I'm doing? So yeah, I definitely there seemed to be a theme in a lot of these films of, you know, what am I contributing? Am I doing the best that I can do? Should I step aside? Should I, do something else? Definitely a theme you could find in a lot of these films.
Yeah.
But all right. Well, I think that's it.
Tilda's dance.
Oh, yeah. We got to talk about that. Okay. This is going to be a separate YouTube video, I think. So we're sitting there at Blancanieves, waiting for Blancanieves to start. We'd rushed over because there was a panel right before that. And we're sitting there, and Chaz comes out, and she says, true to her word, Tilda Swinton is here to do something. And Tilda Swinton came out and was like, this is something we do at our film festivals in Scotland. We're going to dance. We're going to have a dance-along. And you're like, okay. And she's like, and we're not going to just dance up here because you guys will just sit and watch us. I'm going to come down there. We're going to dance with you. She's like, hit the music. Barry White starts playing from the sound system. Tilda Swinton runs into the audience and starts running up and down the aisles and is like dancing her way through the crowd. Starts a conga line that she brings all the way around the theater and up onto the stage. And for 5 minutes, Ebertfest was a dance party.
It was amazing.
Yeah, it was.
She was grabbing kind of random people in the aisles, and I thought it was kind of. She sort of dedicated it to Roger afterward, and I thought kind of after it was sort of her or Chaz's way of pushing against kind of the darkness of the week, and that was the morning the sun finally came out, and it was just sort of everyone. They kind of, and this was about 11 in the morning, and it really kind of energized the festival.
Absolutely.
It was for me that was kind of the really the highlight. As good as many of the films were. That was wonderful.
Well, and honestly, it's just a great idea. I mean, you're kind of at the festival, you're watching movie after movie after movie, you're sitting down all day. It's like, of course, why wouldn't you want to dance around a little bit and get yourself moving? Yeah,
and the fact that it's Tilda Swinton, who has an on-screen demeanor and many characters being kind of cold, and she's, as far as I can tell, not like that at all. And in fact, she was, I didn't know this till after the panel. We went to that 9 a.m. morning panel. My friend Sheila, who was on the panel, she was looking out at the audience, of course, and she told me, she said, Tilda Swinton was at the panel, just quietly sitting in the back, listening attentively. And so she was there, Tilda Swinton was there a year or two ago. I forget if the film might have been I Am Love or something like that. And she's obviously Roger called her Saint Tilda. if something like if the movies have a patron saint, it should be his pick is Tilda Swinton. So I just thought it was just a really great moment. And great that she made it there, because a lot of the guests did not make it there because of the weather. A lot of anyone flying into Chicago on Wednesday, flight canceled. Pretty much. So Jack Black was supposed to be there. He was not there. Richard Linklater did make it there, but apparently he had to drive. Literally plane, train, and automobile. And he was there 2 years ago as well. So a lot of these people were people who were friends with Roger and to whatever degree. And obviously he meant a lot to them for them to come this year.
Yeah, the first panel I went to on Thursday morning at 9 a.m. only had 4 people on it. That was with the moderator. So you feel like there probably were supposed to be more people there, but just people couldn't get there in time. So, but yeah, I think anything else we need to talk about? I can't think of anything.
No, I'll be curious to see where the fest goes. You're talking about next year, because the fact that obviously Chaz gave every indication that they want to continue this, and I think it's certainly in the interest of them with the Ebert Film Studies going on at the University of Illinois. I'll be curious because Roger always picked the films, so it'll be interesting how they decide them from now on. But I think certainly, I mean, it's part of Roger's everlasting legacy, and certainly they also unveiled a couple days after his passing the new Roger Ebert digital, rogerebert.com, which if anyone go see the website. The website is really amazing and really, really well done. So we'll see.
All right. Well, I think we'll get out of here. So thank you, Craig, for joining us. Thanks for hanging out with me at Ebertfest. I appreciated that. I didn't have to eat alone or anything like that. That was fun. It
was a good time again.
Very good time.
Big difference between South by and you're sitting on the sidewalk eating like a burrito.
Exactly.
Well, you could have, had lunch with Tilda Swinton.
Exactly.
Played your cards right.
Exactly. Not as many food trucks at Ebertfest as there were at South by. But anyways, we're going to get out of here. Thank you guys for watching. My name is Andy.
And I'm Jason.
This has been, and always will be, A Place for Film. A Place for Film is recorded at WFIU Studios in Bloomington, Indiana.